AITA for pretending not to know my wife in public after she pranked me. It was supposed to be a quick stop. We were at the mall, picking up a few things before grabbing lunch. Nothing out of the ordinary. I was already a little drained from the weekend errands, but Emily, my wife, was in one of her playful moods. That usually meant a mix of sarcasm, teasing, and little jokes at my expense. Normally, I just rolled with it. But today she took it way too far. We were standing in line at a crowded store, waiting to check out. The place was packed, families with kids, couples shopping, the usual weekend chaos. I was scrolling on my phone, zoning out, when suddenly, Emily's voice cut through the noise. Loud, clear, and way too dramatic. "Oh my God," she gasped, stepping back like she was in some kind of movie scene. "I can't believe you would cheat on me and think I wouldn't find out." Silence. I felt every head in that store turn toward us. My stomach dropped. My brain couldn't even process what had just happened. I looked up, and she had this exaggerated, fake horrified look on her face, like she was waiting for some kind of reaction. I blinked. Was this a joke? I glanced around. A cashier looked awkwardly frozen, unsure if she should keep scanning items or call security. A couple of teenagers were openly staring, one of them already pulling out his phone. A woman near the front actually gasped. I turned back to Emily. "Are you serious?" I muttered under my breath. She smirked, but I could tell she was loving the attention. "Relax, it's a joke," she whispered. Then, still loud enough for people to hear, she added, "I can't believe I trusted you." I felt my face burning. It wasn't funny. Not even a little bit. And in that moment, something in me just snapped. I took a deep breath, looked her right in the eye, and said, "Sorry, ma'am, I think you have me confused with someone else." Then, I turned back to the cashier and acted like I didn't even know her. The silence that followed was deafening. For a second, she just stood there, completely thrown off. This wasn't the reaction she expected. I could see it in her face. Then, just like that, the smirk disappeared, replaced by something I hadn't seen before. Actual shock. People were still staring. Some of them started whispering. One guy actually chuckled. Emily's face turned red, not from embarrassment, but from anger. She grabbed the bag of stuff we were supposed to buy, slammed it onto the counter, and hissed, "You're such a child." Without another word, she stormed out of the store. I stood there for a second, took a deep breath, then calmly finished paying. I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Emily stormed out of the store after me, practically jogging to keep up. "Are you serious right now?" she hissed, grabbing my arm. What the hell was that? I yanked my arm away and turned to face her. I could still feel the heat of all those eyes in the store, the murmurs of people who actually believed her ridiculous accusation. "What was that?" I shot back. "You just told a whole store full of people that I cheated on you, like it was some joke." She folded her arms. "Oh, come on, it was obviously a joke. You really think they believed me?" I glanced over my shoulder. A couple near the entrance of the store was still looking at us. The cashier had raised an eyebrow when I was leaving. "Yes, Emily. They did." Her face twisted in frustration. "You're being so dramatic." I let out a sharp laugh, but there was nothing funny about this. My heart was still pounding. "Dramatic? Emily, you basically painted me as a cheater in public. And when I reacted, I was the one embarrassing you." She threw up her hands. "I was just messing around. You do this all the time, taking everything so seriously. Why can't you just go along with things for once?" And there it was. The same excuse she always used. Every time she took things too far. Every time she said something cruel and brushed it off as just a joke. Every time she humiliated me in front of others and told me I was overreacting. I let out a slow breath, trying to push down the anger boiling inside me. "Emily, do you even hear yourself? You humiliated me in front of strangers. Strangers." And when I reacted, without yelling, without causing a scene, just quietly shutting it down, "You're mad at me." She clenched her jaw, looking at me like I was the one being irrational. "You made me look like an idiot in there." I laughed again, but this time, it was cold. "Oh, so now you feel embarrassed? Now that's a problem." For the first time, she hesitated. I didn't wait for her response. I turned and walked toward the parking lot, needing space before I said something I'd regret. She followed, still fuming, but quieter now. When we got into the car, she slammed the door shut. "You're so sensitive," she muttered under her breath. I gripped the steering wheel, staring ahead. My stomach felt tight, like I'd just swallowed a rock. I wasn't even mad anymore. I was just tired. Tired of always being the one to take the joke. Tired of always being told to lighten up. Tired of feeling like my feelings didn't matter. I started the car without another word, and we drove home in silence. And for the first time, I wondered if we were even on the same team anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The look on people's faces in that store. The way my stomach dropped when Emily said those words. The way she had laughed like it was nothing. Beside me, she was scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just embarrassed me in front of a bunch of strangers and called it a joke. I turned over, trying to ignore the knot in my chest, but she must have sensed my mood because she sighed and put her phone down. "You're really still upset about this?" she asked, sounding more annoyed than concerned. I clenched my jaw. "Yeah, I am." She scoffed. "It was a joke. You know I didn't mean it." I sat up, rubbing my face. "Emily, do you even hear yourself? You accused me of cheating in front of a bunch of strangers. Do you know how humiliating that was?" She sat up too, arms crossed. "Oh my God, you're acting like I actually accused you." It was obvious I was joking. Was it? I shot back. Because no one in that store looked like they were in on the joke. They just saw some woman freaking out on her husband and assumed the worst. She rolled her eyes. People don't actually care. They'll forget about it in an hour. I exhaled, trying to keep my frustration in check. That's not the point. The point is you do this all the time, and every time I tell you I don't like it, you act like I'm the problem. She blinked, as if I had just spoken a different language. Do what all the time? This. I threw up my hands. Making me the butt of your jokes. Saying embarrassing stuff in public just to see how I'll react. I've told you before that I don't like it, but you always brush it off. And when I finally do something back, like pretending I don't know you, you suddenly do care. Her face twisted like I had just accused her of something horrible. So you did that on purpose? To humiliate me? I did it because I was humiliated, I said. I was mad, and I reacted. And you know what? For the first time, I didn't feel like the joke. She stared at me, and for a moment, I thought she got it. But then she let out a short laugh. One of those "are you serious?" laughs. "You're blowing this way out of proportion," she said. "It's just my personality. I joke around. That's who I am." I looked at her, really looked at her, and suddenly, something in me just shifted. "Then maybe your personality doesn't work with mine." She went quiet. I could see the surprise in her eyes, like it had never even crossed her mind that this could be a real issue. But for me, it was all I could think about. Because if she didn't respect me now, when would she? The fallout didn't just stay between me and Emily. It spilled over into our friend group, and suddenly, everyone had an opinion. Some thought it was hilarious. "Dude, that was legendary," my friend Mark said, practically crying from laughter when he heard what happened. "You finally gave her a taste of her own medicine." A few others agreed, saying Emily had been pulling these stunts for years and it was about time someone flipped the script on her. But then there were the others. "You really just pretended not to know your wife," Emily's best friend, Lisa, said when she cornered me at a get-together a few days later. "In public. That's so messed up." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Lisa, you weren't there." She accused me of cheating, loudly, in the middle of a store. People were staring. "That's not just a joke, that's straight up humiliating." Lisa scoffed. "You know how she is. She just likes messing around. You could have laughed it off instead of making her look stupid." That part got to me. Oh, so when she humiliates me, I'm supposed to laugh it off. But when I do something that embarrasses her, suddenly I crossed a line. Lisa shifted uncomfortably but didn't have much to say after that. I wish I could say that conversation was an isolated thing, but it wasn't. Over the next few days, I kept hearing the same split reactions. Some people thought Emily got what she deserved. Others thought I had gone too far. And Emily, she was still pissed. One night, she sat across from me in our living room, arms crossed, lips tight. "So, is this just how it's gonna be now? Every time you don't like one of my jokes, you're gonna act like I don't exist?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Emily, you don't get it. This isn't about one joke. This is about years of you putting me in embarrassing situations and expecting me to just laugh along." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. It's not like I do it all the time." I looked at her, dead serious. "Emily, name one time in the past year where your jokes weren't at my expense." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her expression shifted, first defensive, then frustrated, then something else. Something I couldn't quite place. For the first time, I think she really heard me. But the question was, did it even matter? Because as I sat there, watching her struggle to find an excuse, I realized something. If she had actually cared about how I felt, she wouldn't need to be convinced. That thought hit harder than anything else. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my untouched cup of coffee. Emily was across from me, arms crossed, waiting for me to say something. "So, is this really where we're at now?" she finally said, her voice flat. "You're gonna act like I'm some kind of villain over a joke?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Emily, It's not just one joke. It's the fact that I've told you, over and over, that I don't like this stuff, and you don't care. You only care now because I embarrassed you for once. Her expression twisted. That's not fair. I shook my head. Isn't it? Let's be real here. If I had pulled something like that on you, if I had, I don't know, loudly accused you of cheating in front of a store full of people, would you have laughed it off? She didn't answer. Exactly, I muttered. The silence sat between us, heavy and suffocating. For years, I had let these things go. I had told myself that Emily was just that kind of person. Sarcastic, playful, a little over the top. I told myself I was being too sensitive when her jokes made me uncomfortable. But the truth was that I had been ignoring something big. I wasn't happy. I wasn't comfortable. And the worst part? I had spent years trying to convince myself that I was. Look, she finally said, softer this time. I get that maybe I went too far. I'm sorry. But come on, don't act like I'm some terrible wife just because I have a sense of humor. I swallowed hard. It's not about humor, Emily. It's about respect. She groaned, leaning back in her chair. Oh my God, you sound like a therapist. I blinked. And in that second, everything just clicked. She wasn't sorry. Not really. She wasn't apologizing because she saw my point. She was apologizing because she wanted this conversation to be over. She wanted things to go back to normal. But I couldn't do that. I think we need to take a break, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. Emily's head snapped up. What? I mean it. My voice was steady, even though my heart was pounding. I need time to think. And honestly, I think you do too. She scoffed, pushing back from the table. You're seriously doing this over one bad joke? I exhaled slowly. No. I'm doing this because I'm tired of feeling like a joke to you. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about one thing. It was about the fact that, deep down, I had always been the one compromising. And for once, I was choosing not to. Was I overreacting? Maybe. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing up for myself. And that wasn't a joke.